and welcome to Blender Masterclass by SYED, ZEERAK, HUSSAIN, GILLANI. Today's lecture might feel a little bit different to you because we are starting with our Facebook page. So I am introducing you to our Facebook group, which I have sent in the WhatsApp group so that you all can join. Here you will be able to share all of your artwork and the progress you are making with our course. Plus, you will be able to ask questions to other students and other members of the class so that you can trace how where are you that with the people you are studying the course, on which stage are they and where are you. So I highly recommend you to please join the group from the link I have provided in the WhatsApp group, so that we can collaborate more and more. And when people are collaborating, other people get motivated and they also start to work along. So the topic of our video today was sharing your material, second was the outliner, and third was rendering your scene. So we have covered the sharing your material scene, and now we are going to cover what is the outliner. So for the outliner, we will have to go back into our main website or main software, which is the Blender. So let me just turn on show off. Show off is a software which lets me show you that what button am I pressing. So we'll go to Blender here. So once we have gone to Blender, I will open the duplication well scene. Okay, it cannot read, so I will have to open it from somewhere. So then lecture 4, lecture 3, duplication lecture, and duplication well scene. And here we have our duplication well scene. So the first thing that I have to tell you is I want you to make some changes in your Blender. So this is what we call the outliner. This area is the outliner. So I will widen it a little bit, and what I want you to do is go to the top and then press this button which says filter, and from filter I want you to turn on this selectable button and change it from gray to blue, this display in viewport button, and this display in renders button. I want you to turn on all these first 5 buttons. After doing it, you can just click anywhere and go back. So what do these buttons do? Let me select the plane so that we can show what we are doing. So here we have selected our plane. What does this button, the first disable selection or the selection button, do? When you press this button, now you cannot, you can see that all these buttons are white, but this one has gone gray. This one has gone gray for the plane because we selected it, we clicked it once. So this one has gone gray. Even though I am now for plane, it has gone gray. So even though I am trying to click on the plane, like you can see that I am trying to click on plane, but nothing is happening. The plane is not getting selected. This option can be very useful when you are duplicating scenes, when you are moving scenes, because you can always turn off the selection of lights. You might have seen that we have almost 4 lamps, 1 2 3 4 5 lamps. This was because when we were selecting these pieces of ours, these pieces, we were mistakenly also selecting these lamps and duplicating them all along. So you can prevent this mistake by just not allowing the Blender to select it. So allowing the Blender to select it. You can do it for camera and lamps, and when you are working on a very complex scene, it might be very handy for you to sometimes not be able to select some objects, so that you can select the specific objects and work on only those. If all of the objects keep selecting themselves, then it might be a little bit annoying for you when you are working on a very complex scene. So let's set it back so that it can be selected. Now you can see that it can be selected. When I select it, it get outlined, but when I deselect this option, it does not get outlined when I press left click. So click it again. Now let me explain to you what this eye means. This eye means that you can hide it in viewport. So just by pressing this, you see that our plane just disappeared. But if I will render my scene, the plane would still appear. So this button, what this button does is the same as this button, but what this button does is it turns it off in all viewports. In further, when we will be working further, we will be having two viewports. So if I select this one here and press hide, then it gets hid, then it hides. But both of these are in object mode or 3D viewport. But if I go into any of these options, then this will not get turned off, or this will not hide by pressing this button. Then we will have to press this button, this screen type of button, so that it gets hidden in all of the viewports. So let me set it back. The fourth button which I made you to turn on is the camera button. What this does is it allows the camera to see a specific object. So when this option is on, the camera right here. This is our camera. This yellow selected object is our camera in the scene. So when this button, this camera button is selected for an object, we are allowing the camera to see that object. But if we uncheck it, now the camera is not allowed to watch or record or capture this object in the final rendered image. So let me get this straight for you. Yes, this is a good scene. Let Control Alt 0 to set our camera here. Let's grab it on Y. No, not this. Grab it on XX. Yes, here, and grab it on ZZ. Take it a little bit out. So this is a good scene of our. We have allowed the camera to see this plane, the plane which is selected. If we press F12, you can see that our camera viewed the plane. You can see in final image that there is a green plane. Let me cancel this, and now I will not allow the camera to watch this, to capture this green plane. When I will be in viewport, I will be still able to see this green plane through the camera. But when I will not be in viewport, when I will be rendering the scene, I will not be able to see that. This option is very, very useful when you are modeling faces, when you are modeling people, when you are rigging, because there will be a lot of things that will be in our viewport and will be in our scene, but we don't want them to be rendered with our final product. So this option will be very handy there. So this one button will make those changes which we need, so that we don't render our plane or a specific object that we don't want to be rendered in our scene to be rendered in our scene. Okay, so now if I press F12, you see that there is no green plane, just a well scene. So what I have just done is shown you that what do you need to select in this outliner, and what all these options which I made you to turn on in your Blender will do, and how are they very, very helpful and very, very they're used a lot of time. I don't have a word after very, very, so they're very, very useful. Yes, mind my vocabulary. So now we have gone through the outliner, what we will do now is move to the third part of our lecture today, and that is the main part of our lecture today, which is rendering our scene. So how do we take these objects and turn them into an image, turn them into a movie? What we need to do is render the scene which our camera is capturing. So let's set up our camera a bit. You will press 0 to see what the camera is seeing. And to set camera at any of your desired place, you will just press Control. You go to that specific view and then you press Control Alt. While holding and pressing Control Alt, you press 0 and the camera moves to that specific location. I just pressed Control Z so that the camera can go back to our previous location, because this is the location which I am going to render today. So what our scene will be, which we will be rendering, is that a well and light is coming out of our well. So what we'll do is grab our light on x-axis and then grab it on z-axis. And now if we go to 0 and let me just check, I'm just checking it. So let me just, yes, the light is coming out of our scene. Okay, so now I will teach you that how to render a scene. So we have set it up our light. Let me select these three lights, shift, hold and delete these three lights. One light is good for our scene today. Grab it on Y. But here, grab it on X. Here, and it's almost in center of our well now. So what we are going to do is learn that how can we render our scene in, I think this is a better view. So grab it on Z. No, grab it on Z and then Z again, and we will be here. And then I think I should rotate it on X. No, not this X, but dual X. Yes. So I will keep it a bit here, and then grab it on Z. Zoom out a little bit, and now it looks more dramatic. Just we need to do is to grab it on axis, keep the well in one side, and S it a bit. So now we have a more dramatic scene, and you can see that the green part can be seen from the opposite side of the well. So I will grab it in Y, XX, and grab it in Y, I think. Yes, now we're good. Okay, so now I will teach you how to render a scene. So I have just told you that how to set your camera. To set your camera at any specific place, you just hold and press Control Alt, and then from that specific view you press 0, just like we did before, and then you just only have to make some iterations to the position of the camera. But now that you have set up your camera, what will you do to render a scene or render a picture out of it? So first of all, we need to go to this tab, which looks like the back of a professional camera. And once you will hover your mouse over it, it will say render properties. Go to the render properties, and you will see a bunch of options here. A lot of options. Let me go to the rendered view. This is the rendered view. This is the actual view that you will be getting out of your scene. This is the lightened view, so that you can see all your objects, position them, lighten them, and then you check in the render scene that whether you have done it right. Okay, so now we have gone into the render tab. So you can see the first option says render engine. Let me check if this is recording, because it could be a loss if it's not. Sorry. So the render engine says Eevee. Eevee is a very good rendering engine. What it does is that it guesses that where is the light coming from, where does it have to make reflections. It sometimes messes up the light, but it is a very lightweight and fast rendering engine. On the other hand, we have cycles. If I go to cycles and then go to rendered view, you can see that all of the things get bogged down first of all. Then whenever I move my scene, everything gets blurred. But you will be able to see that we have more options with the cycles here. So first of all, I will go to experimental and then GPU compute. So what GPU compute will do inside of cycles is you will first of all start to hear a lot of sound from your machine, which is just the fans getting faster and faster now because it have to prevent it from heating. It requires a lot of work from the graphics card and CPU when you are working in cycles. So you can always use EV. EV is much better in terms of its efficiency, but EV produces 10% less quality results than the cycles. Cycles produces 10% better results, but that 10% has a lot of work to do with ray tracing and reflections, which takes that 10% to almost 40%. But I will prefer working in EV for right now, that because it is a faster engine and it will be light on your machine. The next thing you need to do is go to your edit menu and then preferences. Inside preferences, you will be able to see a system tab. Inside system tab, you can see that I have both of my CPU and graphic card both employed into working. You can uncheck that or uncheck this. I will be only working with my when I will be in cycles, I will be only working with my graphics card because the CPU will be recording this video for you. Okay, so you can always check both of them or any one of them or whatever do you have. Okay, I will recommend you for these type of scenes working in EV because it is lighter on your device and you don't have to make many modifications to your device to work better in EV. EV can work very good on a lighter PC. For cycles, you have to move to a very high-end PC to get good results out of it. But we will be checking both of these out of because I have a mid-range PC which can almost do cycles. Okay. So now that we have selected our render engine, you don't have to get bogged down by all of this. You can just leave it right here. We will come back to it when we will need it. You don't have to spend any of your brain on this right now, or if you want to, you can always check and uncheck your things and then see that what is happening if you are doing it and what is happening if you're not. I will turn on ambient occlusion and bloom both for our scene today. So the next thing that we want is before the next thing we need to do before rendering is our output properties. What output properties does is let you select the resolution of your camera, what format will be the camera capturing in, and all these types of things. So what we do first of all is check that what is the resolution of our workspace right now. So we have 1920 by 1080 pixels selected right now, which translate to 1080p HD resolution. You can turn it to 200% and now it will be producing a 4K HD picture. Okay, but it will be more heavy on your PC. Today we will be working on 100% only. The second thing is what you see here. All except these all properties are related to animating your videos, which are not our context today, but will be in 2 to 3 days, and we will be learning all of this after 2 to 3 days. So let's leave it here. Then we go here. Here you will be able to see that there is a file format written, colors written, color depth, return, compression, and things like this. If you have 2.9, 2.0, then you will have all of these things in the same place as mine. So all of these are the properties of the output product. So you can select a PNG, a BMP, Iris, PNG, JPEG, JPEG 2000, Targa RAW. All of these available which you see are image containers. What these are: AVI JPEG, AVI RAW, and FFmpeg video are movie containers. These are out of our context today. All we need to deal with are these formats. The best I think is PNG because it is light on computer and produces good results in small size files. All of the other things, just leave them where they are. You don't have to turn anything on, off, or change anything. These are in the best option, these are in the best selections you can make. Okay, so now we have learned what is relevant to us in output properties and what is relevant to us in render properties. So now we will move back to our render port and go to 0 to see that our scene is all good, that our camera is set up at the right position. Now how will we render our scene? We have two options. We can either go here in render menu, we can say render image, or what it translates is F12. You can press F12 and an image of the position where your camera is set and the scene which your camera is seeing will be rendered out. So what we will do is, we don't have to select camera or anything, we just go to render and render image. So we have Eevee selected and you can see that this is the image that Eevee has produced. You can see that there are some shadows, everything is here. It is a good scene. So what we can do is go to image. Keep in mind one thing, that your file will never be saved automatically. You will have to go to image and then save as, and in save as, I think I am in the right folder. No, I am not. I can just go to desktop and I say Eevee. So I have saved my file as Eevee well seen. Well seen, we'll see, not well seen. No, scene, I'm sorry, scene, Eevee well seen. So I will save this image in on desktop as Eevee well seen. Now what we will do I will set it in slot 1. For slot 2, what I will do is go to render properties and select it as cycles. In cycles I will say experimental supported GPU compute, and in GPU compute I will render it at 256 and then go to, and you might be able to listen to my computer right now. I am taking my mic there so you can listen to it. So I will just change it to Eevee for a minute and you will be able to listen a fan being turned off. Here I have gone to Eevee and the fan goes down, and here I come back to cycles and the fan comes back. So this is the difference between cycles and Eevee. So what we are doing is this: integrated path tracing is good, denoising in render we will be using denoising by optics. Okay, we will not denoise our scene today. So we are ready. So we will take it from 256 to almost 320 samples will be good, but with cycles the light should be a little bit less. So what I'll do is turn down my light a little bit so I can get a better detail. Yeah, 500 will be good. So now I will go to 0, where's my scene, and in render I will render my image. Now you will be able to see that it is rendering the image, but it is taking longer. So the Eevee was just we selected the render image and it rendered it, but Cycles is rendering it block by block and taking a lot of time on scenes where there is light, and even then it is leaving some noise because our light is not set up, and the fan of my CPU has gone too loud, I am afraid. But let's render it, it will go with it, it's not that weak. Okay, it's not giving a lot of noise. The new updates with the render engines, the new, I always recommend you using the new updates. The new updates always optimize the render engines, so don't always remain on the old updates, don't always remain with the old versions, because they always optimize the new render engines in new updates. So always update your version. So the scene is rendering, it's rendering, it's rendering, and you will be already able to see that this image is a little bit more cinematic. The image is a little bit more, it has depth to it. It is not looking like a 2D image, it is something 3D in here. So it is taking time, but the results are better. You can see that the results are better. You can skip this part if you have a low-end laptop, especially if you have a computer CPU, then it's good. But if you have a low-end laptop, you can skip rendering it with cycles because it can harm it a bit. So I think the scene is done. Yes, the scene is done. So I will save it as cycles. Well, okay, well seen. So yes, here we see, and the fans went down. So we are done with this. I can turn off my blender. I have turned off my blender. So we will go to EV well scene. You can see the EV well. This is our EV scene. You can see that the light here is almost flat. There is less detail with light here. The light coming out of these is less, and we just move to cycles and you can see that there is better detail. The light is very cinematic here. The light coming out of these bricks is very good. The scene is looking more realistic, although there is a little bit noise here, but you can see that each brick can be recognized. Here you can see that these bricks cannot be differentiated, but here you can see that every brick can be differentiated from each other. So the cycles produced very good results, but it took a lot of time, a lot of CPU power, a lot of GPU power. With the amount of power used by EV, this image is a very good rendered image. I can fetch these details with Photoshop once I am done with the rendering, but it will take further time. But in cycles, I don't have to do that. It is already done. It is beautiful. It is cinematic. It has put some life to the photo. In EV, there is less life in the picture. In cycles, there is a lot of life in picture. It is alive. So that was today's lecture. It was lecture 6 of our Blender Masterclass. I hope you are satisfied with the Blender Masterclass by ZEERAK HUSSAIN GILLANI. If you are, then please don't forget to share it with your friends and ask them to register in my course. So that was all from my side today. Render your scenes and send them into the Blender group and the Blender WhatsApp group, the Blender website group, the Blender Facebook group. Share it everywhere so people get motivated and they also work with you. So that was all from my side today. My name is ZEERAK HUSSAIN GILLANI, and until next lecture, keep blending.